Alrighty, we're going to look right now at a requested topic. Now, we recently looked at twin flames, so this is kind of it's not exactly twin flames. What we're looking at here is just deep soul connections. And I think specifically we're looking at sort of soul bonds, right? Soul bondage, or maybe more than connections, they'd be more like shackles. So let's take a peek and see what we got. Wow. Wow. So this is interesting right off the bat with a root card of the sun and the main card of the Nine of Cups. Because the sun is actually about freedom. Now, there's these two figures, and they're coming together here, and there's nothing hidden between them, but the sun is kind of the opposite of bondage. So this would show freedom, and it would show joy and union, but these two are choosing to come together, right? And then the main card is the Nine of Cups, which, I mean, can be about confusion, but I think really it's about choice. Because the genie says you can have whatever you want, so what do you want? And here it's up to the person to choose which one of the cups they want to take. So this shows freedom and this shows choice. So right away it's showing basically that the soul bonds that we have are optional, that we actually choose those, and that we're not bound to anything. Now let's just look on either side of this Nine of Cups to see what goes into it. And there is our old friend the devil. And the reversed Five of Swords. Well, the devil, now if you think about soul bonds, or like soul contracts is how some people make sense of it. The devil traditionally is how this would show up. Now, not in the Deviant Moon, but in the other traditional tarot decks, they've got the two figures and they've got the collars that go around their neck to bind them to the devil. But either the chains are loose or the collars are open or whatever, because the people willingly serve the devil, right? Now here, specifically, the devil is reversed. Now, the essence of this matter, it shows freedom and choice. But here is this, I guess we'll do sort of a past and future sort of thing. The devil reversed is this sort of obsession, but it's being forced. It's being forced upon you, like projected upon you. Now here in the sun, these two figures are completely free, but then there is this obsession that is thrown at you. It's like, here, catch, and then something is thrown at you. And then we have the confusion. Well, really, it's about the choice here in the Nine of Cups. And as it moves forward, then we get the Five of Swords. And the Five of Swords is basically insult in the face of being powerless. And this thing reversed, it's also more of a projected kind of thing. Now, what I'm getting out of both of these, the fact that they're both reversed, and these two are both upright. So the upright ones show freedom of choice, and the reversed ones show obsession and insult. I'm thinking that just the way that people usually think about the soul connections or whatever, they don't necessarily have anything to do with this world. I think they're being projected from another layer, right? So it and then that begs the question, so what do you do with this life? You know, do you obey all of your other lives with this life? But here, these two would show that whatever it is that would cause the person to feel a certain way when they meet someone with a deep soul connection, that shit is projected from a different layer, and it doesn't have to be adhered to, right? All right, let's just see what the Tattoo Tarot has to say about the same thing. And we're getting sort of a general look at the deep soul connections. And we get a Two of Coins. The thing that is really sticking out to me in the Two of Coins is the scales. So there is an equilibrium that happens. Now, the way that I can see this making sense is if an exchange like throughout time, the two people are trying to even out their energy. One person gave the other one so much energy before, and now maybe the shoe is on the other foot or whatever. But I think the scales would show some sort of maybe a quest for balance, or like some way to even out the scales, especially since with these deep soul connections, we are talking about multiple lives, and we're talking about, you know, multiple dimensions and all of that. So there might be like a seeking to even something out. Let's just see what's on either side. And we get a court card, the Knave of Cups, which is generally about emotional optimism. And also the Seven of Wands. And the Seven of Wands is showing a guidepost, a road sign, right? It's like in the Deviant Moon when the person finally gets out of the woods, the Seven of Wands would be like a road sign that would say, you know, the next town is so many miles, or you have arrived here, like a mile marker, right? I guess that's the best way to say it. So here, maybe the best way to approach these would be with sort of emotional optimism, and trying not to bring so much of the previous connection into it. And on the other side, the Seven of Wands, it could be that these deep soul connections are like mile markers. You know, it would show you getting to a certain point in your life path. And certainly relationships, the strong relationships are like that. You know, it's like your life before you met this person and your life after you met this person. But the Tattoo Tarot seems to suggest striving for some sort of equilibrium, and also that it shows up as kind of a mile marker in your life. And maybe I'm going to pull one more on this Knave, because the court cards in this deck, I'm just not completely sold on. I mean, I don't know how to pull that much information out of it. So let's see what else we got. And the Four of Cups is basically showing a hidden sadness. The Four of Cups is when it's more like stagnation and the sadness is hidden. It's definitely there, but it's more internal than external. So that combined with the knave, I mean, I'm guessing now that I look at this, the knave is probably just showing how when you meet someone that you have a deep soul connection to, that how it might make you feel very emotionally youthful, vulnerable for sure, but also naive, right? Emotionally naive, like all the lessons that you've learned up until that point in your life would just fucking fly out the window. But also, it might be helpful to approach these things just with a certain amount of optimism and like clean slate sort of energy, especially when what we're trying to do is balance something out. I suppose whenever one of these relationships comes into your life, it would be helpful to see what other things are happening because of the signpost deal and also the equilibrium deal. Like, is there something that you've been trying to achieve, or like is there something that has been taking too much of your energy or whatever, and it requires a balance. All right. Now, so we've got kind of a general look at this stuff. So I guess now I just want to see what to keep in mind, or sort of, I mean, all of these connections are going to be a little different depending on what they revolve around. But let's just see if we've got any general tips on how to deal with the deep soul connections. Interesting. So the three of Pentacles is basically showing collaboration and teamwork. So I suppose this would really mean to kind of open up to a larger group that is going through the same sort of emotional or soul energy. This would also imply that any deep connection you have with a person, you would probably have it with a number of people. And it might be helpful to work through or to understand or maybe unlock the power within that connection if it was more of a collaborative effort, you know. And this makes sense to me because of the fucking weird obsessive way that people tend to act under these. And this leads more toward like the candle burning on both ends and it just burns out really fast. But if it's like more of a collaborative energy, then it would be more sustainable, one would think. But yeah, collaboration. This is also creativity and like creating and working together. So when you have the deep soul connections, it might be a really good idea to sort of create and collaborate with them in whatever it is that you would build together. And there we go. And a couple of sevens. Both of these showed up in the twin flame reading as well. Okay. So the Seven of Wands is emerging from past restriction. Now, especially when we look at these deep soul connections as bonds or like fucking chains, right? Like you are bound to service to some person because of some shit that happened in another life or in another dimension. And the seven is showing emerging from restriction. Now, it could be too that the deep soul connection shows up at a time when you really need to get out of something else. And the seven is just saying, when you emerge from restriction, don't fucking turn around, right? Don't go back into the restriction. Make sure you keep moving forward. And the other 7 is the witch practicing witchcraft. It's just learning by doing. I imagine our ultimate road is a really fucking long one. So who knows how many lifetimes we live between now and what, the end of things, I guess. But this is just saying keep learning by doing. So that also means don't feel bad about relationships that fail, because we're just learning by doing. And eventually we get it right, theoretically. Now, let's see. What would I ask? I guess, what is the biggest pitfall when dealing with deep soul connections? Is there like something to be specifically warned about? Oh, and it's the Justice card, which is very reminiscent of that Two of Pentacles that showed up in the Deviant Moon with the scales, right? Well, okay, the Justice card has no bias, and it just sees theoretically truth. So I guess this is just saying, I mean, maybe legal stuff, contracts. I think that's what it's talking about. What to be warned of are contracts. Now, one example of a fucking soul contract is a marriage. When, at least in America, you have to fucking sign like a legal document. But as with the Justice card showing up here as a warning, try not to sign any fucking documents that have anything to do with your emotional connection to a person. Try to keep all that fucking horseshit out of the picture. But there is also like some sort of judgment that is showing up in here, some sort of unbiased judgment that can see everything. So I guess with the Justice card, I would also say try not to be a fucking dick, because it's like there's something that sees this shit and something is definitely like keeping track. So if you violate some sort of universal law in a deep soul connection, it will be noted and it will probably not be forgotten. But I would also avoid the signing of contracts. That seems like a bad deal anyway. Let's see. Just sort of what else should I know about these deep soul connections and contracts? And we get an Ace of Wands. Now, it's a source of passion. That is the Ace of Wands. It's the new source of passion. This would also be probably a good person to create with on the level of creating a human, but also just a good person to create with in general. It's a great source of fire. Now, keep in mind that the deep soul connections, this is a little different than the twin flame reading that we did because that's kind of a different issue. The twin flame is like 2 different versions of the same person, pretty much. And this is just people that you have run into on multiple levels, multiple worlds, whatever the fuck, But it looks like it is a good way, or it is a good match for creation. The deep soul connections. I'm going to pull a card to see maybe what is the best way to figure out what you are trying to work through, right? Because if you can identify what it is that you're trying to work through together as beings, then it would be a lot easier. Well, fascinating. We get the 8 of Wands, and it's reversed. So the 8 of Wands would show a message. Like here, the crow is delivering a message, and it is sort of this energy that happens really quick. When it's upside down, instead of this saying the message is delayed, which wouldn't be fucking helpful, what I'm thinking is that it's actually showing a message coming from a different world or a different layer, dimension, however you want to see it. So you could get the message from probably the life that you had together before. Now, how would you get that? Through dreams, through fucking tarot readings, you know? I mean, just through your intuition. You might just look at them and instinctively know. But I think this is a good thing to keep in mind. Just if you have someone that you've really gone through shit with in the past and you can really feel it, try to identify what it is that you're trying to work through and what it is that you're trying to balance out. So that is what we get here. And if you have any questions about this or any different angles you want me to look at it from, feel free to let me know. And peace.